Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cool transparisteel viewport, watching the alien shuttle dock with their research vessel through a hiss of equalizing atmospheres. 23 years of studying xenolinguistics, and she'd never imagined her first real conversation would happen while floating in orbit around a planet that looked suspiciously like Earth's prettier, more successful sister. "Try not to hyperventilate into your coffee," Dr. Sarah Kim said, settling into the observation lounge chair beside her. "I know this is historic and all, but fainting during first contact would definitely make the highlight reel of humanity's most embarrassing moments." Elena managed a nervous laugh. "Thanks for the confidence boost. Really feeling the love here. Just saying, I've seen you trip over your own shadow. Let's aim for dignified curiosity rather than slapstick comedy." Sarah's grin took the sting out of her words. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud that resonated through the ship's hull. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she activated her translation matrix, though early communication suggested it might not be necessary. The Valdani delegation had been transmitting in perfect English for the past 3 days, complete with what sounded like regional accents from various Earth locations. Commander Jake Torres's voice crackled through the comm system. "Ladies and gentlemen, our guests are aboard. Dr. Vasquez, you're up. Try not to start any interstellar incidents, yeah." "No promises," Elena muttered, straightening her uniform jacket. She'd changed clothes 3 times that morning, finally settling on something she hoped projected professional competence rather than barely contained panic. The airlock cycled open with a soft whoosh, and Elena felt her breath catch. The woman who stepped through moved with fluid grace, her dark hair catching the artificial lighting in ways that seemed almost luminescent. She wore a simple gray garment that appeared to shift and adapt to her movements, clearly advanced fabric technology. But what struck Elena most was how utterly, impossibly familiar she looked. Except for the ears. They were longer than human ears, tapering to elegant points that gave her an otherworldly beauty. Elena found herself staring, then quickly looked away, heat rising in her cheeks. "Dr. Vasquez?" The woman's voice carried that same shifting accent Elena had noticed in the transmissions, as if she were sampling different linguistic patterns. "I am Zara of the Valdani. It is pleasant to meet you again." Again. Elena's heart skipped. "I'm sorry, I think there's been some confusion. We've never met before." Zara tilted her head, studying Elena with eyes that seemed to hold depths of starlight. A smile played at her lips. A smile that made Elena's chest tighten with inexplicable longing. "Haven't we?" Zara moved closer, and Elena caught a scent like ozone and something floral she couldn't identify. "Dr. Kim, would you mind if I spoke with Dr. Vasquez privately? There are personal matters to discuss." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Personal matters? Elena, did you join some kind of interstellar dating service I don't know about?" "Sarah." Elena felt her face burn. "What?" "I'm just saying, the way she's looking at you is very, we have history, and unless you've been moonlighting as a space diplomat, I'm confused." Zara laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Your friend has good instincts. We do have history, Dr. Vasquez. Just not in this lifetime." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Images flashed through her mind, silver spires reaching toward twin moons, crystalline laboratories, hands that were not quite human holding hers while stars wheeled overhead. She gripped the viewport's frame to steady herself. "Elena?" Sarah was immediately at her side, medical scanner in hand. "Your pulse just spiked to 120. What's wrong?" Elena stared at Zara, who watched her with patient understanding. "I've been having these dreams lately. Silver cities, 2 moons, and someone who looked like." She gestured helplessly at Zara. "Like me, but you could never quite see my face clearly," Zara finished softly. "You wake up feeling like you've lost something precious, but you can't remember what." Sarah's scanner beeped urgently. "Okay, that's definitely not normal." "Elena, I'm reading some unusual neural activity. Dr. Zara, what exactly are you doing to her? Nothing harmful, I assure you. I am simply familiar to her. Zara's gaze never left Elena's face. We knew each other on another world, in another time. My people call it soul-threading, when consciousness transcends the boundaries of single lifetimes. Right, Sarah said dryly. Cosmic reincarnation. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? Elena, please tell me you're not buying into, Elena. But Elena wasn't listening anymore. The dreams were becoming clearer, more vivid. She remembered the weight of ancient books written in symbols that hurt to look at directly, remembered working late into the night while twin moons cast strange shadows through crystal walls. And she remembered someone beside her, always beside her, whose face she could never quite recall but whose presence felt like coming home. Lyrian, she whispered, and didn't understand why. Zara's eyes widened. You remember the name. Even here, even in this form, you remember. This is insane, Elena said, but her voice lacked conviction. People don't reincarnate across star systems. Consciousness doesn't work that way. Doesn't it? Zara reached out, stopping just short of touching Elena's hand. What if I told you about the scar on your left shoulder, shaped like a constellation we called the Weeping Star? What if I mentioned your habit of humming a melody that doesn't exist in any human musical tradition? What if I described how you used to fall asleep reading, and I would have to carefully remove your glasses and mark your place in the book? Elena's hand flew to her shoulder, where beneath her uniform lay a birthmark she'd always thought looked like random dots. Her other hand unconsciously moved to her pocket, where her reading glasses rested. She'd been humming that strange melody just that morning while getting dressed. This is either the most elaborate con in galactic history, Sarah said, or we're dealing with something way outside my medical expertise. Elena, I think you should sit down. I think, Elena said slowly, I need to hear more. She looked at Zara, seeing not an alien stranger but something that felt achingly like recognition. Tell me about Lyrian. Tell me about this other world. Zara's smile was radiant. It was called Nethes Prime, and it was beautiful beyond your current language's ability to describe. You were a scholar there, studying the connections between consciousness and reality. We worked together, researched together, loved. Whoa there, Space Lady, Sarah interrupted. Maybe ease into the cosmic romance angle. Elena's pulse is already doing things that would worry a cardiologist. But Elena barely heard her friend's concern. She was lost in memories that felt more real than the present moment, remembering a love that spanned impossible distances and lifetimes, remembering work that had been interrupted by catastrophe, remembering a promise that someone would find her again someday. We met before, she whispered, understanding finally washing over her. On another world. 3 days had passed since Zara's arrival, and Elena found herself spending every waking moment in the ship's cultural exchange chamber, a sterile room that had been hastily converted into something resembling a comfortable meeting space. The Federation's idea of diplomacy apparently involved a lot of beige furniture and motivational posters about understanding through communication. So let me get this straight, Commander Torres said, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. You're telling me that Elena here used to be some kind of alien scholar named Larry? Lyrian, Elena corrected automatically, then stopped. Wait, why am I correcting you? I don't even know if I believe this myself. Zara sat across from her, those pointed ears twitching slightly in what Elena was beginning to recognize as amusement. Your friend has a gift for reducing cosmic mysteries to their most absurd elements. It's a talent, Torres agreed cheerfully. Last week I explained quantum entanglement to the new recruits using a metaphor about cosmic divorced couples who still finish each other's sentences. Very effective. Sarah entered the room carrying her medical scanner and wearing the expression she usually reserved for patients who insisted their headaches were caused by alien mind control. Elena, I've been analyzing your brain scans from the past few days. The results are interesting. Interesting good or interesting bad? Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew. Interesting, as in your neural patterns have been shifting in ways that should be medically impossible. When Zara talks about your supposed past life, certain dormant areas of your brain light up like a Christmas tree. Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing Elena's brain activity. See these clusters here? They're processing information using pathways that shouldn't exist in human neurology. Zara leaned forward, studying the display with professional interest. On Nethys Prime, we called those memory bridges, neural structures that form when consciousness transfers between vessels. Lyrian's mind is still in there, Elena. It's just been sleeping. Great, Elena muttered. I'm like some kind of cosmic Airbnb for dead aliens. Torres snorted with laughter. That's going on your business cards when we get back to Earth. Dr. Elena Vasquez, xenolinguist and premium afterlife accommodation. This isn't funny, Sarah said, though Elena noticed she was fighting a smile. We're talking about fundamental questions of consciousness, identity, and what makes someone who they are. Zara stood and moved to the viewport, gazing out at the swirling nebula that painted the space around them in shades of purple and gold. Would you like me to help you remember, Elena? I can guide you through the process, show you how to access those sleeping memories. Elena felt her heart rate spike. What if I don't like what I find? What if Lyrian was someone I wouldn't want to be? She was brilliant, Zara said softly. Curious about everything, always asking questions that made others uncomfortable. She had this way of humming when she was deep in thought, and she collected books from across the galaxy, physical books, not data files, because she said the weight of knowledge should be felt in your hands. Elena's breath caught. She looked down at her hands, remembering the feeling of ancient paper, the smell of binding glue and aged ink. I've always preferred physical books. Even when everyone else switched to digital readers. And you hum, Torres pointed out. That weird little tune you do when you're working on translations. Always thought it was some Earth song I didn't recognize. It's not from Earth, Zara confirmed. It's a traditional melody from the crystal gardens of Nethys Prime. Lyrian used to hum it while tending to the memory flowers, plants that could store and replay experiences. Sarah's scanner beeped urgently. Elena, your hippocampus is going haywire. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating. Elena closed her eyes and let the memories come. She saw herself, but not herself, someone who looked like her but with longer ears and silver streaks in her dark hair, walking through gardens filled with plants that glowed with soft, internal light. Each flower held a different memory, and as she passed, they would whisper fragments of the past to anyone who would listen. She remembered working in laboratories that grew from living crystal, their walls shifting and reshaping themselves based on the experiments being conducted within. She remembered late nights spent with Zara, mapping the quantum structures of consciousness itself, trying to understand how awareness could persist beyond the death of its original vessel. And she remembered the growing dread as their instruments detected the approaching catastrophe that would tear their world apart at the subatomic level. The dissolution, Elena whispered, opening her eyes. Something was coming for Nethys Prime, something that would unravel the very fabric of reality in our solar system. Zara nodded gravely. A cascade failure in the dimensional matrix. Our sun was about to collapse into a quantum singularity that would erase everything within 50 light-years from existence. Not just destroy it, erase it, as if it had never been. So you guys basically faced cosmic deletion, Torres said. And your solution was to mail Elena's brain to Earth? In very simplified terms, yes. Zara's pointed ears drooped slightly. The consciousness transfer project was our last hope. We could save a few minds by sending them across space and time to find new vessels, new lives in safer parts of the galaxy. Elena felt tears on her cheeks, though she wasn't sure if they were her own or Lyrian's. But something went wrong. The transfer was incomplete. Not wrong, Zara said quickly. Unfinished. We ran out of time. I was supposed to follow you, to help you remember and complete the integration process. But the dissolution came faster than we predicted. Sarah cleared her throat. I hate to interrupt this touching reunion, but I'm reading some concerning data. Elena's brainwave patterns are synchronizing with an external signal. Zara, are you broadcasting something? Zara looked surprised. No. I'm not using any technology. This should be a purely mental process. Torres frowned. Then where's the signal coming from? Elena felt a chill of recognition. It's not coming from anywhere. It's resonance. Other consciousness transfers are waking up. As if summoned by her words, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Commander Torres to the bridge, please. We're receiving some very strange reports from the crew. Torres sighed. Let me guess, everyone's suddenly remembering lives they never lived. Close, came the reply. Half the engineering team thinks they used to be sentient crystals, Lieutenant Morgan is convinced she was once a gas-based life form, and Chef Rodriguez is trying to prepare a meal for someone called the Hive Queen of Arcturus 7. Elena and Zara exchanged glances. How many consciousness transfers did you send? Elena asked. 43, Zara admitted. We saved as many as we could in the time we had. Torres laughed, though it sounded a bit strained. So you're telling me that Earth has been hosting a cosmic refugee camp for the past few decades, and nobody knew? The transfers were designed to integrate slowly, naturally, Zara explained. They should have remained dormant until the subjects were ready to remember. But something about our reunion seems to be accelerating the process for everyone. Sarah's scanner was now beeping continuously. Elena's neural activity is off the charts, and I'm detecting similar patterns throughout the ship. Whatever's happening, it's spreading. Elena stood unsteadily, her mind reeling with memories that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. She remembered loving Zara across lifetimes, remembered the desperate hope that had driven them to attempt something unprecedented, remembered the terrible beauty of watching a world die so that its people might live again in distant stars. But she also remembered her life as Elena Vasquez, her childhood on Earth, her studies, her friendships, her own loves and losses and triumphs. She was both people, and somehow that didn't feel as impossible as it should have. We need to help them, she said firmly. The others who are remembering. They're going to be confused, frightened. They'll need guidance. Zara smiled, and in that expression Elena saw echoes of conversations held under alien stars, promises made across the void of space and time, and love that had refused to die even when worlds ended. Then we'd better get to work, Zara said. After all, we have 43 reunions to facilitate. Torres groaned. This is going to be the strangest mission report in Federation history. Elena found herself in the ship's mess hall at 0300 hours, unable to sleep as fragments of 2 lifetimes battled for dominance in her dreams. She wasn't alone, half the crew seemed to be wandering the corridors in various states of existential confusion. Lieutenant Morgan sat at a corner table, staring intently at her coffee cup as if trying to will it to float. Any luck with the telekinesis? Elena asked, settling into the chair across from her. Morgan looked up with tired eyes. I keep expecting it to work. Kethvara, that's apparently who I used to be. Was part of a gas cloud consciousness that could manipulate matter through thought alone. Turns out human brains are significantly less cooperative. Chef Rodriguez appeared beside their table, carrying a tray laden with what could generously be called food, though several items seemed to be moving independently. I made breakfast for the Hive Queen, he announced proudly. Took me 3 hours to remember how to prepare living nutrient clusters. Elena stared at the writhing purple masses on the plate. Rodriguez, those aren't living nutrient clusters. Those are the emergency rations that went bad last month. Rodriguez blinked, then looked down at his creation. Oh. That would explain why they smell like feet. The fact that you thought spoiled rations were an appropriate breakfast says concerning things about your alien memories, Morgan observed. Sarah Kim appeared in the doorway, her hair disheveled and her medical coat inside out. Has anyone seen Commander Torres? I need to run some tests on his neural patterns, but he's convinced he's supposed to be hibernating until the next ice age. Check Cargo Bay 3, Elena suggested. He mentioned something about building a proper den. This is getting out of hand, Sarah muttered. I've got crew members trying to photosynthesize in the hydroponics lab, someone attempting to molt in the shower facilities, and don't get me started on what Lieutenant Chen thinks constitutes proper mating rituals for his species. Elena felt a familiar presence before Zara even entered the room. The connection between them had grown stronger over the past day, accompanied by increasingly vivid memories of their shared past. She remembered the exact texture of Zara's hand in hers, the way her pointed ears would flush when she was embarrassed, the sound of her laugh echoing through crystal chambers. The integration process is accelerating beyond safe parameters, Zara said without preamble. Your people are experiencing memory cascade, too much information from their previous lives flooding their current consciousness simultaneously. Rodriguez held up one of his purple creations, which had apparently grown tiny legs. Is this why my breakfast is trying to escape? Among other reasons, yes. Zara sat beside Elena, close enough that their shoulders touched. Elena felt her pulse quicken, memories of similar moments playing out across alien landscapes. We need to help them learn to filter the memories, to choose which aspects of their previous selves to integrate. Right, Elena said, trying to focus on the practical problem rather than the way Zara's proximity made her entire nervous system hum with recognition. So how do we do that? Memory meditation. On Nethys Prime, we used quantum resonance chambers to help individuals sort through complex consciousness overlays. Zara paused, looking around the distinctly unadvanced mess hall. Though I suspect your ship lacks such facilities. Sarah snorted. Our idea of advanced psychology is making sure the counselor's office has a comfortable chair and tissues. Quantum resonance chambers are slightly outside our budget. Elena closed her eyes, letting Lyrian's memories surface. She could see the chambers Zara spoke of, crystalline pods filled with luminescent fluid that responded to brainwave patterns, creating visual representations of memory and consciousness that could be examined and organized like filing systems. We could improvise, she said slowly. The holographic training simulators in Deck 7 have quantum processing cores. If we modified the neural interface protocols. You want to jury-rig consciousness therapy using training equipment? Sarah asked. That sounds like the kind of idea that gets people's minds scrambled. Morgan looked up from her still stubbornly non-floating coffee. My mind is already scrambled. At this point, I'm willing to try interpretive dance if it helps. Torres chose that moment to shuffle into the mess hall, looking distinctly unkempt and carrying what appeared to be a nest made of ship blankets and stolen cutlery. Has anyone seen my hibernation cave? I could have sworn I left it in Cargo Bay 3. Jake, Elena said gently, you're human. Humans don't hibernate. Tell that to Korvac the Enduring, Torres replied seriously. He spent 3 centuries in the ice caves of Sigma Draconis, waiting for the great thaw that would herald the return of his people's migration season. Rodriguez nodded sagely. The Hive Queen also had specific seasonal requirements. Very particular about ambient temperature and humidity levels for optimal egg-laying conditions. Nobody is laying eggs on my ship, Sarah declared firmly. I don't care what your previous incarnation's reproductive cycle involved. Elena felt a headache building behind her eyes, and she wasn't sure if it was from stress or from Lyrian's memories of the neural adjustment treatments they'd undergone during the consciousness transfer preparation. Zara, how long do we have before this gets dangerous? Zara's expression grew serious. In cases of uncontrolled memory cascade, the current personality can be completely overwhelmed within 72 hours. The individual essentially becomes their previous incarnation, with no memory of their current life. So we could lose ourselves entirely, Elena said. Or worse, the consciousness could fragment, leaving you with a mind that belongs to neither lifetime. We called it temporal schizophrenia. Torres looked up from arranging his nest blankets in a precise pattern. That sounds bad. Should I be concerned? Because Korvac is telling me that concern is a weakness that leads to death by ice wolves. Definitely concerned, Sarah said. Elena, how quickly can you get those simulators modified? Elena was already mentally cataloging the necessary changes, drawing on both her current knowledge of Federation technology and Lyrian's understanding of consciousness manipulation techniques. Give me 4 hours. But I'll need help from someone who understands the quantum processing architecture. I can assist, Zara offered. My neural pattern might be compatible with your computer systems. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You want to plug an alien consciousness directly into our ship's computer network? Because that definitely won't cause any problems. What's the worst that could happen? Rodriguez asked cheerfully, then paused as one of his purple breakfast creatures made a break for freedom across the table. On second thought, don't answer that. Elena stood, decision crystallizing in her mind. We have to try. The alternative is watching our friends disappear into people who died when their world ended. Speak for yourself, Torres said, curling up in his blanket nest. Korvac lived a very fulfilling life. Lots of successful hunts and impressive territorial displays. Jake, you're a starship commander, not a nomadic ice hunter. Multi-talented, Torres replied, closing his eyes. Wake me when the migration season begins. Elena exchanged glances with Zara, seeing her own determination reflected in those otherworldly eyes. They had worked together before to save lives across impossible distances. Now they needed to do it again, racing against time to preserve the personalities of people who had become unwitting refugees from a dead world. All right, Elena said. Let's build some quantum consciousness therapy equipment out of spare parts and hope we don't accidentally erase anyone's mind in the process. Sarah sighed deeply. I'm going to need so much paperwork to explain this to Starfleet Medical. As they prepared to leave, Rodriguez called after them, if anyone finds the Hive Queen, tell her I'm sorry about the breakfast situation. I promise the next batch of nutrient clusters won't be quite so ambulatory. Elena couldn't help but laugh, despite everything. Even facing the potential loss of their identities, her crew somehow managed to find humor in the situation. It was distinctly, wonderfully human, and something she was determined not to lose, no matter how many lifetimes of memories came flooding back. The modified holographic chamber hummed with quantum energy, its walls displaying swirling patterns of light that seemed to respond to the brainwaves of everyone inside. Elena stood at the central control console, her hands moving across interfaces that felt familiar despite being cobbled together from training equipment and Zara's improvised neural interfaces. Is it supposed to make that noise? Torres asked from his position in one of the recalibrated simulation pods. He looked more like himself than he had in days, though he still occasionally glanced around as if expecting ice wolves to emerge from the corners. The harmonic resonance is within acceptable parameters, Zara replied, though Elena noticed her pointed ears twitching with what might have been uncertainty. The quantum field generator is simply expressing itself enthusiastically. Sarah monitored the medical readouts from her station. Everyone's neural patterns are stabilizing. Whatever you two did, it's working. Elena felt the integration process happening within her own mind, Lyrian's memories settling into place like books being properly shelved after years of chaos. She could access the alien scientist's knowledge and experiences without losing her own identity, the two lifetimes existing in harmony rather than competition. I can still remember being Kethvara, Lieutenant Morgan said from her pod, but I also know I'm human now. It's like having a really vivid memory of a movie I starred in centuries ago. Rodriguez emerged from his pod looking sheepish. The Hive Queen's reproductive instincts have definitely calmed down. Though I have to say, her knowledge of exotic cuisine is going to revolutionize the ship's menu. Anyone interested in properly prepared zephyr silk noodles? As long as they're not alive and trying to escape, Torres said firmly. Elena felt Zara's presence beside her, both physically and through the strange quantum entanglement that connected their consciousness. She turned to find those familiar eyes studying her with an expression of wonder and something that might have been relief. "You're still you," Zara said softly. "Both versions, but still fundamentally Elena. Were you worried I wouldn't be? I wasn't sure what would happen. The Elena I've come to know over these past days is different from Lyrian, but no less remarkable. I was afraid that helping you remember might erase the person you've become." Elena reached out and took Zara's hand, feeling the rightness of the gesture across 2 lifetimes. "I'm both of them. Lyrian's knowledge and love, Elena's experiences and growth. I wouldn't want to lose either part of myself." The chamber doors opened to admit more crew members, each looking more settled and integrated than they had since the awakening began. Chief Engineer Park bowed formally to Elena, a gesture that seemed to carry weight from his previous existence as a diplomatic courier on a world where proper respect protocols could prevent interstellar wars. "Dr. Vasquez," he said, "I wanted to thank you. My memories of serving the Crystal Concordat are now properly contextualized. I understand they're part of my past, not my present obligations. No more diplomatic incidents in engineering?" Sarah asked hopefully. "Well, I may still address the warped core with excessive formality," Park admitted, "but I no longer feel compelled to negotiate trade agreements with the replicator systems." Elena laughed, feeling lighter than she had since this whole situation began. "I think we can live with that." Torres stood and stretched, looking around the chamber with renewed clarity. "You know, Korvac's survival instincts weren't entirely useless. I've got some ideas for improving our emergency protocols that could save lives in hostile environments. As long as you don't try to build any more hibernation nests in the cargo bays," Sarah said. "No promises during winter months," Torres grinned. Elena turned to Zara, suddenly aware that their crisis was resolved but their future remained uncertain. "What happens now? Your mission was to help us remember, to complete the consciousness transfers. Does that mean you'll be leaving?" Zara's expression grew complex, emotions playing across her features like light through crystals. "That's what I need to tell you. The truth about what I am, what this reunion really means." The chamber fell quiet, everyone sensing the weight of whatever revelation was coming. "I'm not the original Zara," she said simply. "I'm a consciousness construct, created from her memories and personality patterns. The real Zara died with Nethes Prime, but her final act was to encode herself into a quantum biological matrix that could survive across space and time." Elena felt the words hit her like a physical blow, but strangely, they didn't hurt as much as she'd expected. "So you're artificial?" "In the sense that I was constructed rather than born, yes. But I carry all of her memories, her feelings, her love for Lyrian, for you. The question is whether that makes me real enough." Elena studied Zara's face, seeing uncertainty there for the first time since they'd met. She thought about identity, about what made someone who they were, about the strange journey that had brought 2 lifetimes together in her own mind. "You're as real as I am," she said finally. "I'm carrying the consciousness of someone who died when her world ended, integrated with the life I've built as a human. If I can be both Lyrian and Elena, then you can be both the original Zara and whoever you've become since." Torres cleared his throat. "Plus, I hate to break up this touching moment, but we've got bigger issues to discuss. Elena, your integration process worked so well that we're reading quantum signatures from other areas of the galaxy. Other consciousness transfers are waking up." Elena felt Lyrian's memories surface, the 43 souls they'd managed to save, scattered across the galaxy in the final desperate hours before the dissolution. "They'll need help too. The Federation is going to love this," Sarah muttered. "A galaxy-wide awakening of reincarnated aliens. The diplomatic implications alone will keep the bureaucrats busy for decades." Zara squeezed Elena's hand. "We could help them. Travel to the worlds where the transfers landed, assist with integration processes. Make sure no one else has to face this confusion alone." Elena felt the rightness of it, the sense of purpose that came from combining Lyrian's knowledge with her own desire to help others. A counseling mission for cosmic refugees. I like it. Can we call it Operation Past Life Crisis? Torres asked hopefully. Because I really feel like we need to maintain some humor in our official documentation. Absolutely not, Sarah said, but she was smiling. Though I admit, the psychological research opportunities are unprecedented. Rodriguez appeared with a tray of food that looked both exotic and surprisingly appetizing. I thought you might be hungry after all that consciousness integration. These are traditional celebration cakes from 3 different worlds. Turns out the Hive Queen had excellent taste in desserts. Elena accepted a piece of what looked like crystallized starlight, finding it tasted like honey and possibilities. Around her, the crew, her friends, were settling into their new dual identities with the same adaptability that had made humans successful explorers of the galaxy. So, she said to Zara, ready for a new adventure. We've got 42 more reunions to facilitate. Zara's smile was radiant, carrying echoes of love that had survived the death of worlds and the passage of lifetimes. With you? I've been ready since the moment I found you again. Torres raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. To the strangest mission in Federation history, and the only crew crazy enough to make it work. To second chances, Sarah added. To finding home in unexpected places, Elena said, looking at Zara and seeing past, present, and future all at once. As the meridian changed course toward the coordinates of the next consciousness transfer, Elena felt the harmony of her integrated self settling into place. She was Dr. Elena Vasquez, xenolinguist and cosmic therapist. She was Lyrian, scholar and survivor of a dead world. She was someone who had learned that love could transcend lifetimes, that identity was more flexible than anyone imagined, and that sometimes the best families were the ones you found among the stars. Behind them, the nebula painted space in shades of purple and gold, beautiful and vast and full of infinite possibilities.